The knife slipped from Eleanor's hand as she sliced into Lily's birthday cake, the blade clattering against the sun-warmed terracotta tiles like a gunshot in the quiet villa kitchen. 7 candles flickered wildly in the breeze from the open shutters, casting erratic shadows that danced across her daughter's wide blue eyes. "Mommy," Lily whispered, her small voice cutting through the sudden silence, but Eleanor could only stare at the unopened package on the oak table, the one addressed in her late mother-in-law's precise, looping script from across the ocean, a ghost from a life she'd tried to leave behind in New York. She'd moved to this sleepy coastal town in Catalonia 2 years ago, chasing the salty whisper of the Mediterranean to drown out the echo of car horns and hospital beeps that still haunted her dreams. Spain wasn't home, not really. Just a borrowed breath. A place where the olive groves bent like old friends under the weight of secrets. But today, on Lily's 7th birthday, the past had shipped itself to her doorstep, wrapped in butcher paper stamped with faded eagles and stars. Eleanor tore at the twine with trembling fingers, the room holding its breath as Celine, her Celine with those paint-flecked hands and eyes like aged Rioja, watched from the doorway, a half-smile fading into concern. The box yielded easily, tissue paper rustling like dry leaves. Nestled inside was a dress, the kind of heirloom piece that smelled faintly of lavender and mothballs. Ivory cotton organdy, hand-stitched with delicate lace at the collar and hem, perfect for a seaside party. Lily gasped, reaching out with sticky fingers from the cake, but Eleanor's gaze snagged on the embroidery along the inner seam. A fine script in pale blue thread. For Lily, with endless love from Grandma Harriet, Grandpa Tom and Celine. Celine. The name hit like a rogue wave, cold and unyielding. Eleanor's knees buckled. She gripped the table edge, the wood biting into her palms. Not their Celine, the woman whose laughter filled this villa like sunlight on stucco, the one who'd coaxed Eleanor back to life with midnight sketches and shared bottles of vermouth under the stars. No, this Celine was a specter, inked into fabric by hands long turned to dust. Sophia's parents had never mentioned a sister, an aunt, anyone by that name. In all the strained Thanksgivings and perfunctory Christmas cards after the wedding, their only lesbian daughter married to a writer from Brooklyn, they'd spoken of family as if it were a ledger balanced in red ink, Sophia the sole entry under losses. "Who's Celine, Mommy?" Lily asked, tugging at the dress's skirt, oblivious to the storm brewing in her mother's chest. Eleanor forced a smile, her voice a brittle thread. "Just an old family friend, Bug. Let's try it on." But as Lily scampered off to her room, twirling the gown like a parachute, Celine crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, her bare feet silent on the tiles. She was 36 to Eleanor's 38, all curves and quiet fire, her auburn curls tied back with a scarf stained from her morning's canvas work. Born in this very town, Celine had roots that tangled deep into the cliffs, a painter whose portraits captured the ache behind smiles. They'd met at the weekly market 6 months ago. Eleanor haggling over figs, Celine sketching the vendor's wrinkled hands, and in the space between brushstrokes something had bloomed. Not a rebound, Eleanor told herself daily. A resurrection. "Hey," Celine murmured, cupping Eleanor's face, thumbs brushing away the dampness she hadn't realized was there. "Talk to me. That name. It's mine, but it's not, is it?" Eleanor leaned into her touch, the scent of turpentine and sea salt grounding her. "Sophia's parents. They sent this from Boston. And they embroidered your name on it. Like they knew." She laughed, a hollow sound. "Or like the universe is playing a cruel joke." Celine's brow furrowed, her Spanish lilt softening the edges of her English. "Sophia had a sister? You never said." "I never knew." The words tasted like ash. Sophia had been the sun in their marriage, vibrant, unyielding. A corporate lawyer who'd fought for every rainbow flag in Massachusetts before cancer clawed her away at 39. But she'd parceled out her past like state secrets. A Catholic upbringing glossed over, holidays with parents who smiled through gritted teeth at their unconventional union. "We were too busy building us," Eleanor whispered, "to dig into the graves." That night, after Lily twirled in the dress until the hem frayed against the flagstone patio, guests from the village toasting with kava under strings of Edison bulbs, Eleanor sat alone on the balcony, the package's crumpled paper at her feet. The sea churned below, black and indifferent, foam-laced waves crashing against the rocks like accusations. Celine found her there at midnight, wrapped in a wool serape, a mug of herbal tea steaming in her hands. "Can't sleep," Celine settled beside her, legs dangling over the edge, their shoulders brushing in that easy way that still sent sparks through Eleanor's veins. Not since the box. She sipped the tea, chamomile bitter with unspoken fears. What if it's a sign? Like, don't move on. Don't replace her. Celine set her mug down, turning Eleanor's chin with a gentle finger. Sophia was my North Star once, Amor. But you're the one who stayed. The one who carried Lily through the dark. This. She nodded at the dress now folded on a chair inside. It's thread and memory. Not a chain. Their lips met then, soft and searching, the kiss tasting of salt and surrender. Celine's hands wove into Eleanor's hair, pulling her closer, and for a moment, the world narrowed to the rhythm of their breaths mingling with the tide. It had been like this since the beginning, tentative cafe dates evolving into stolen weekends in Barcelona, where Celine's studio overlooked the Gothic quarter, canvases leaning like confessions against the walls. Eleanor, who'd once filled journals with grief-scrawled poetry, now found words flowing again. Love letters in the margins of her novel drafts, hidden in Celine's sketchbooks. But dawn brought the letter she'd overlooked in the box's lining. A single sheet of cream stationery, Harriet Harrington's handwriting marching across it like soldiers on review. Dearest Eleanor, Tom and I hope this finds you well in your new life abroad. Lily's birthday, how she must be growing, a spitfire like her mother. Enclosed is the dress Celine made, tucked away in Sophia's hope chest these 8 years. Our girl always dreamed of nieces and nephews to spoil. This was her sister's gift to the family she never lived to see. We've added our love, of course, but Celine's touch lingers. Tell Lily her aunt watches over her from heaven. And Eleanor, come home when you're ready. Boston misses its daughters. With guarded affection. Harriet and Tom. Eleanor's hand shook as she refolded it. Celine, Sophia's sister. Dead at 28. Complications from a pregnancy that left no child behind. Sophia had buried that grief like a thorn in her palm, never letting it bleed in front of Eleanor. Why? To protect their fragile joy? Or because admitting loss meant tempting fate? The realization settled like fog over the bay. Sophia's parents weren't ghosts. They were gatekeepers parceling out revelations like rations. And now, loving a woman who shared a name with their lost daughter felt like trespassing on holy ground. The days blurred into a watercolor haze after the package arrived, the dress hanging in Lily's closet like a talisman, worn once to a village festival, where the girls' laughter rang out over castanets and grilled sardines, but eyed by Eleanor with the wariness of a loaded gun. She threw herself into routine. Mornings at the scarred wooden desk in the turret room, typing chapters of her half-finished book about fractured families, the sea's endless murmur her only editor. Afternoons belonged to Lily, sandcastles on the playa, ice cream cones dripping onto sun-brown knees, while evenings were Celine's domain, the two of them wandering the cliff paths, hands linked against the wind that carried hints of pine and distant rain. Celine never pushed, but Eleanor felt the questions pooling in her silences, like unpainted strokes on a canvas. One twilight as they paused at the old lighthouse, its beams sweeping the horizon like a forgiver's gaze, Celine broke the spell. Tell me about her. Sophia's sister. I want to understand why this name feels like a bruise on my skin. They sat on the weathered bench, the stone cool beneath them, gulls wheeling overhead in lazy spirals. Eleanor traced the cracks in the concrete, memories surfacing like bubbles in a shaken glass. I only know fragments. Sophia mentioned her once, after too much wine at our anniversary dinner in the Berkshires. Celine was the baby, born when Sophia was 10. Wild, they said, climbed every tree in Back Bay, dreamed of being a seamstress like their abuela. But she fell in love young, married a fisherman from Gloucester. Pregnant at 20, gone by 28. Preeclampsia, they called it. Sophia said it hollowed their parents, turned them to stone. Celine nodded, her curls catching the dying light like burnished copper. And Sophia? Did it hollow her too? More than she let on. Eleanor's voice cracked, the old ache flaring. She'd wake from nightmares, sweating, whispering see in the dark. But by morning she'd be suits and briefcases, fighting for equal rights in boardrooms. I thought it was just grief's residue. Now, I wonder if she kept Lily's middle name a secret for a reason. We named her Lily Rose Harrington Rivera, after Sophia's favorite garden. No Celine in there. Celine's hand found hers, fingers interlacing with the familiarity of lovers who'd mapped each other's scars. Names are just sounds, Ellie. They don't own us. But if this is haunting you, maybe it's time to ask the ghosts themselves. The email to Harriet went out at 2 a.m., Eleanor's cursor hovering like a held breath before she hit send. Thank you for the dress, Lily adores it. But Celine? Sophia never spoke of a sister. Why now? And why embroider her name like it's part of our story? The reply came swifter than expected. 3 days later, as Eleanor and Celine picnicked on a blanket amid wild thyme and lavender, Lily chasing butterflies nearby. Harriet's words were clipped, efficient as a legal brief. We assumed you knew. Sophia was protective, always the big sister even in death. Celine's loss was her anchor. She commissioned that dress from a local artisan in Boston, dreaming of Lily wearing it at her wedding someday. The embroidery, a reminder that family endures, even when branches break. We're coming to Spain next month. Tom's retiring. We want to see our granddaughter. Book the tickets? Eleanor's stomach twisted, the prosciutto turning leaden in her mouth. They're coming. In 3 weeks. Celine popped a grape between her lips, her smile wry. The Harringtons invading the Costa Brava. Should I practice my curtsy? But beneath the joke, Eleanor saw the flicker. Uncertainty in those brown eyes, the painter's instinct for hidden shadows. Their love had been a private gallery so far. Stolen kisses in Celine's studio, where the air hummed with linseed oil and possibility. Slow dances in the villa's shadowed hall to Nina Simone on vinyl, Lily asleep upstairs. Celine had folded into their lives seamlessly, reading bedtime stories with theatrical flair, her accent turning Dr. Seuss into poetry. Yet now, with the Harringtons inbound, Eleanor glimpsed the fault lines. A new partner, same name as the sacred dead. Would they see Celine as echo or insult? The weeks spun by in a frenzy of preparation. Not just the guest room aired out, linen starched, but Eleanor's heart barricaded with what-ifs. She pored over old photos shipped in a follow-up parcel. Sophia at 16, gangly and grinning beside a pixie-ish girl with the same sharp cheekbones, both in sundresses on a Cape Cod beach. Celine alive and luminous, her laughter frozen in grainy color. The resemblance to Eleanor's Celine was superficial, hair color, build, but enough to stir unease, like viewing a portrait through warped glass. Celine, ever the alchemist, turned the tension into art. One evening, as rain pattered the studio's skylight, she pulled Eleanor onto a dropcloth amid tubes of ochre and ultramarine. Close your eyes, she instructed, blindfolding her with a silk scarf. Then the soft rasp of brushes, strokes on canvas mapping Eleanor's profile, the curve of her jaw, the worry lines fanning from her eyes. This is you, Celine whispered, peeling away the blindfold hours later. The painting was raw, unfinished. Eleanor emerging from a storm-tossed sea, one hand outstretched toward a figure on the shore. Herself, perhaps, or Sophia, or the ghost of Celine past. Not drowned, Celine said. Rising. They made love that night on the studio floor. Bodies entwined amid the chaos of creation. Whispers of te quiero and I love you weaving through the downpour outside. It was tender, unhurried, a reclaiming. Afterward, curled against Celine's chest, heartbeat steady as a metronome, Eleanor confessed. I'm scared they'll hate you. That they'll see you and think. Replacement. Celine kissed her temple, voice a low rumble. Let them. I face worse than in-laws. Remember, I'm the one who convinced the mayor to fund that mural on the seawall. Stubborn as a mule, that man. Laughter bubbled up, easing the knot in Eleanor's throat. But sleep evaded her. The rain a relentless drumbeat echoing the pulse of dread. The Harringtons arrived on a blistering August afternoon, their rental Peugeot kicking up dust on the winding road to the villa. Tom emerged first, 65 and stooped slightly from years at the shipyard. His handshake firm but eyes distant, like a man scanning fog for buoys. Harriet followed, elegant in linen slacks and a blouse the color of driftwood, her silver hair pinned in a chignon that defied the humidity. Lily barreled into them with unfiltered joy, the dress, flaring around her legs as she hugged their knees. Grandma! Grandpa! Look, I saved you cake! The air thickened with hugs and small talk. The flight from Logan, the horror of Ryanair delays, how the olives here tasted like proper earth. Celine hovered at the threshold, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her sundress splashed with fresh cerulean from a morning's work. Bienvenidos, she said, extending a hand. I'm Celine, artist in residence, or so Lily calls me. Harriet's gaze sharpened, flicking from Celine's face to the dress peeking from Lily's bedroom door. Celine, she echoed, the name dropping like a pebble in still water. A beautiful echo. Sophia would have liked that. Tom grunted approval, clapping Celine on the shoulder a beat too hard. Painter, eh? We got a Picasso knockoff in the den back home. Ugly as sin. Dinner that night was a delicate truce. Paella simmering on the outdoor grill. The table laden with aioli and crusty pan con tomate. Fairy lights twinkling against the deepening indigo sky. Lily chattered about school, the bilingual chaos of Catalan and Castilian, while Eleanor poured Tempranillo, willing its warmth to loosen tongues. Conversation skirted the edges. Sophia's old firm promoting a junior associate she'd mentored. The novel Eleanor was noodling, Tom's word. But when Lily yawned and Celine carried her upstairs for a story, the air shifted, heavy as the humid night. Harriet set down her fork, eyes on Eleanor like a prosecutor eyeing a witness. The dress fits her like a glove. Celine's handiwork was always magic. Those seams invisible as prayers. Eleanor nodded, throat tight. She never told me about her. Your other daughter. Tom's face crumpled just a fraction, before he masked it with a sip of wine. Sophia was the shield. Took the hit so we could breathe. After Celine. Well, you know how loss carves you hollow. And now. Eleanor pressed, voice barely above the cicada's hum. Why send it now? With her name stitched in like a claim. Harriet's lips thinned, a muscle ticking in her jaw. Because Lily deserves to know her roots. All of them. And you, Eleanor, you've built a life here, but roots pull. We're not blind. We see the photos on your Instagram, the way you smile again. But smiling doesn't erase. The words landed like slaps, implication clear. Doesn't erase, Sophia. Celine returned then, sliding into her seat with a plate of fruit, oblivious at first to the frost. Dessert, she offered, slicing a peach, juice dripping like bloodless wounds. Harriet watched her, calculating. Tell me, Celine, do you believe in signs? In names carrying souls across the water? The question hung. A hook baited with subtext. Celine met her gaze steadily, knife pausing mid-cut. I believe in what we make of them, Senora. A name is canvas, blank until painted. Tom chuckled, breaking the spell, but Eleanor saw the crack. Harriet's eyes glistening with something fiercer than tears. Not grief. Resentment. That night, as the Harringtons settled into the guest room with its view of jasmine-draped trellises, Eleanor lay awake beside Celine, the mattress dipping under their shared weight. They're not here for Lily, she whispered into the dark. They're here for judgment. Celine's arm tightened around her waist. Then we'll paint over it. Together. But dawn brought no such mercy. Over café con leche on the patio, Harriet cornered Eleanor by the herb garden, Lily and Tom off feeding stray cats down the lane. We hired someone, she said flatly, clipping rosemary with shears that snapped like trap jaws. After Sophia's funeral. A private eye discreet. To make sure you were safe, you and the girl. Spain seemed impulsive. Eleanor's blood iced. You spied on me? Not spied. Protected. Harriet's voice cracked, shears stilling. And we saw her. Celine. Months ago, before you even knew her name. Posting at that market sketches of strangers. The name. It gutted us. Like fate mocking the grave. Betrayal bloomed, hot and thorny. So the dress? The embroidery? It wasn't love. It was a warning. Harriet's eyes met hers, steel over sorrow. Call it clarity. Sophia deserved better than a shadow of her sister warming her bed. The words eviscerated, leaving Eleanor gasping in the herb-scent haze. She fled to the studio, slamming the door on the woman who'd once baked her pecan pie at holidays, now weaponizing memory. Celine found her there an hour later, curled on the daybed amid half-squeezed paint tubes, sobs racking her frame. They knew, Eleanor choked out. Before we did. And they twisted it, the dress, your name, into a knife. Celine knelt, gathering her close, but the damage seeped, staining the air between them like spilled ink. The villa, once a sanctuary of sea breezes and laughter, turned claustrophobic under the Harringtons' gaze. Every creak of floorboards a footstep in a minefield. Eleanor avoided Harriet's eyes at breakfast, focusing instead on Lily's braids, 2 perfect plaits tied with ribbons from the dress's packaging, while Tom rambled about Red Sox prospects, his enthusiasm a dam against the undercurrent. Celine played hostess with gritted grace, her smiles as polished as the silverware, but Eleanor caught the tells. A tightened jaw when Harriet complimented the paella. Sophia hated seafood, you know. The way her brushstrokes grew jagged in the studio, slashing cobalt across the horizon. 3 days in, the fracture widened. They drove to the beach, Lily's insistence, her small hand tugging at swimsuits and buckets, for a forced idle under striped umbrellas. The sand burned like judgment, waves lapping at Eleanor's toes as she watched Celine build a fortress with Lily, turrets rising from wet moats, their heads bent close in conspiracy. Harriet settled beside her on a towel, applying sunscreen with methodical swipes, the lotion's coconut tang cloying. "You're happy here," Harriet observed, not a question. "The light suits you. Softer than Boston's gray." Eleanor shaded her eyes, squinting at the horizon where freighters dotted the blue like distant regrets. "It's home now. For us. For Lily, maybe. But you? Running from ghosts doesn't bury them." Harriet's voice dipped, confiding. "Sophia told me things near the end. In the hospital when the morphine blurred the edges. She worried you'd leave after her. That our lifestyle, as Father called it, would chase you to brighter shores." The admission stung, a barb dipped in old wounds. "She never said that to me. Because she believed in you. In the fight." Harriet paused, digging toes into the sand. "But Celine. God help me when the report came with her photo. The name. It's like Sophia sent her herself a test. Are you loving her, or the echo?" Eleanor surged to her feet, sand scattering. "Stop. Celine isn't an echo, she's alive. Flesh and fire. Not some stitched memory you shipped in a box." Her voice rose, carrying over the surf, drawing Tom's glance from his novel, Lily's curious tilt of head. Harriet rose too, unyielding as the cliffs. "Then prove it. Tell her the truth about Sophia's doubts, the life you had. Don't build on half-truths, Eleanor. That's what broke us first time." The drive home was a funeral procession, Lily dozing in her booster seat, oblivious to the silence thicker than the fog rolling in from the bay. Celine drove, knuckles white on the wheel, stealing glances at Eleanor in the rearview. That evening, as the sun bled orange across the tiles, Eleanor pulled her into the garden, away from prying ears. "I have to tell you something," she began, the words tumbling like loose stones. "Sophia. She had fears. About us lasting, about the world chewing us up. Her mom spilled it today like ammo." Celine leaned against the stone wall, arms crossed, the fading light carving hollows under her eyes. "And you think that's why they came? To reload the gun?" "Worse." Eleanor paced the gravel path, lavender brushing her calves. "They knew about you before we met. Hired eyes on me post-Sophia. Saw your market stall, your name. The dress? It was bait, Celine. To drag her ghost between us." The painter's face shuddered, a canvas wiped clean. "So I'm the villain now? The name that shouldn't be spoken." She pushed off the wall, closing the distance, her breath warm against Eleanor's cheek. "I've never hidden who I am. But you carry her like a locket around your neck, snapping shut when I get too close. That's not fair." Eleanor's hands fisted in Celine's shirt, pulling her nearer even as tears blurred the lines. "I love you. Madly. But they're her blood, and now they're bleeding lies into our life." Celine's kiss was fierce, a clash of lips and salt, hands framing Eleanor's face as if to anchor her to the now. "Then fight for this. For us. Or let me go before the ghosts win." The challenge lingered through the next week, a specter at every meal. Tom softened the edges, taking Lily crabbing at low tide, his gruff tales of lobster traps coaxing giggles from her. But Harriet prowled, dropping barbs like breadcrumbs. A photo album unearthed from their luggage, pages yellowed with Sophia's milestones, graduation, wedding, the ultrasound of Lily at 12 weeks. She wanted more, Harriet said one afternoon, as Eleanor folded laundry in the sunroom. A house full. But fate. Eleanor slammed the basket down. Fate took her. Not me. I was there every chemo round, every midnight vomit. Don't rewrite history to suit your grudge. Harriet's composure cracked, eyes flashing. Grudge? You left us, Eleanor. Flew to Spain like a bird from a cage, taking our blood with you. And now this woman. Celine, Eleanor snapped. Her name is Celine, same as your lost girl. Coincidence, not conspiracy. But if you're so wounded by echoes, look in the mirror. The slap of words echoed, drawing Celine from the kitchen, towels slung over her shoulder. She took in the scene, Harriet's flushed cheeks, Eleanor's trembling fists, and stepped between them, voice even. Senora, with respect. Grief isn't a weapon. It's a weight we all carry. But using it to break what's healing? That's cruelty, not love. Harriet recoiled as if struck, clutching the album to her chest. You don't know love like ours. Sisters bound by blood. And we. Celine gestured to Eleanor, to the villa's warm chaos. Bound by choice. Stronger for it. Tom appeared then, summoned by the raised voices, his face a map of mediation. Enough. We're guests, Harriet. Not generals. But the damage festered, suppurating through the days. The breaking point came on the villa's rooftop terrace, under a canopy of stars that wheeled like indifferent witnesses. Lily's bedtime story had ended, her door clicked shut, leaving the adults with wine and the weight of unspoken verdicts. Tom proposed a toast. To family wherever it finds us. But Harriet's glass clinked too hard against the rail, shattering the fragile piece. You want truth? She hurled at Eleanor, wine sloshing like blood in the bowl. Sophia wrote a letter. Before the end. Sealed for you, but she showed me. Said if you ever wavered to remind you. Our love was the revolution. Don't settle for the aftermath. And this. She jabbed a finger at Celine, who stood rigid by the potted lemon tree. This is settling. A pretty distraction with my daughter's name. The betrayal landed like a thunderclap, the letter a phantom Eleanor had never seen. You lied, she breathed, advancing on Harriet. Kept it from me, twisted it into this. This inquisition. Tom shifted uncomfortably, eyes on his shoes. Harriet, that's enough. The girl's not. No. Harriet whirled on him, voice fracturing. It's never enough. Celine died because we let her, pushed her into that marriage, that life. And Sophia? She burned bright to spite us, married you to prove a point. Now you're desecrating her memory with this. Her gaze raked Celine venomous. A Spanish fling, playing house with our granddaughter. Celine's face paled, but she held ground, voice steady as the sea below. I love her, Senora. Not despite Sophia, because of the strength she gave Eleanor. And Lily calls me family. That's not desecration. That's grace. Eleanor stepped forward, dress clutched in white-knuckled hands. The same dress, now a crumpled flag of surrender. Get out, she said to Harriet, the words steel-wrapped. Both of you. Fly back to your stone hearts. Lily's aunt isn't you. She's the woman who paints her dreams, who holds us when the tide pulls. Harriet staggered back, Tom's arm shooting out to steady her. Tears carved tracks down her face, mingling with the salt spray from below. You'll regret this. Cutting the cord. We already cut it, Eleanor countered, voice breaking. Years ago when you couldn't love us whole. The Harringtons retreated to their room, suitcases zipped by dawn's first light. Lily woke to goodbyes at the door, hugs stiff as starched collars, promises of letters and visits that rang hollow. As the Peugeot crunched away down the drive, Eleanor sank to the steps, Lily in her lap, Celine's hand on her shoulder. A triad against the emptying sky. But the victory tasted of ash. In the quiet that followed, Eleanor unearthed the letter from Harriet's abandoned album, slipped like contraband between pages. Sophia's script, looping and alive. My Ellie, if this finds you reading without me, know I fought because of you. Don't mourn forever, love fiercely as we did. For Lily, for us. Yours in every wave and wonder. Sophia. No doubts. No warnings. Just love unadorned. The villa exhaled in the weeks after the Harringtons' departure, as if shaking off a fever, windows flung wide to the September zephyrs, laundry snapping like flags of truce on the line. Lily asked once, crayon in hand. Why sad faces, Mommy? Eleanor knelt, smoothing her daughter's hair, and spun a tale of big people storms that passed like summer squalls, leaving rainbows in their wake. Celine reinforced it with a mural on the garden wall. A triptych of figures hand in hand against roiling clouds, one with dark waves, Eleanor, one with curls, herself, the smallest a burst of blonde amid the fray. Healing came in layers peeled back like onions in Celine's kitchen experiments. Paimbi tomahawk layered with anchovies, shared over candlelit suppers where laughter edged out the silences. Eleanor returned to her novel, the pages now alive with Spanish cadences. A widow in exile finding not just solace, but sovereignty in love's quiet rebellions. Celine's studio became their confessional, where confessions turned to caresses, bodies mapping forgiveness in the dappled light. Yet the scar from Harriet's words lingered, a faint itch under the skin. One crisp October evening as chestnuts roasted in the hearth, fire crackling against the chill creeping from the sea, Eleanor broached it, wineglass cradled in her lap. They sat on the sofa, Lily tucked early with dreams of pirate adventures, the room aglow with the kind of warmth that felt earned. "I keep replaying it," she admitted, staring into the flames. "The letter, Sophia's real one. She wanted this for me. But her parents. They turned her into a cage." Celine traced the rim of her glass, thoughtful. "Grief does that. Twists love into locks. My own madre, she lost a brother young to the sea. Clung to his old boat like it was salvation, till it sank her spirit. Took years for her to see. Holding on drowns what comes after." Eleanor nodded, the parallel a bomb. "Harriet called you a shadow. But you're light, Celine. The kind that chases mine." Their eyes met, and in that gaze the world righted. A slow orbit pulling them close. Celine set her glass aside, drawing Eleanor into her arms, lips brushing collarbone in a trail of reverence. "Then let's be the dawn," she murmured, and they rose together, shedding clothes like old skins, moving to the bedroom where moonlight silvered the sheets. It was a dance of rediscovery. Fingers exploring freckles like constellations, breath sinking to the distant waves. No rush, no ghosts, just two women weaving a future from the threads of now. November brought rain, relentless sheets that turned the paths to mud, confining them indoors to board games and borrowed books. Lily's school play, a bilingual take on The Little Prince, cast her as the rose, prickly and proud, rehearsals filling the villa with off-key songs. Celine designed her costume, adapting the dress's lace into petals, a nod that honored without haunting. The postman delivered a package mid-month, postmarked Boston, addressed solely to Lily. Eleanor hesitated at the door, heart hammering, but Lily's squeal, "Mail for me," propelled her inside. No dress this time. A wooden puzzle box carved with stars, and inside, a locket on a chain, silver oval, engraved with LRH Lily Rose Harrington. Tucked in velvet lining, a note in Harriet's hand. "For the star who outshines us all. We were wrong. Love isn't portioned. It's infinite. Come visit when the storms pass. Grandma and Grandpa." P.S. Tell Celine her mural haunts my dreams. In the best way. Eleanor read it aloud to Celine that night, voice thick. Lily already asleep with the locket clutched in her fist. "They saw it. Your wall. Somehow." Celine smiled, soft as sea glass. "Instagram probably. Lily's been tagging Auntie Celine's art. Sneaky kid." The gesture cracked the last ice, thawing what words couldn't. Eleanor emailed back, tentative, storms pass. "We'll plan for spring. Thank you for the locket and the letting go." No reply came swift, but one did weeks later. A photo of Tom and Harriet at Fenway, grandson in spirit beside them, grins wide under green monster banners. "Roots bend, don't break. See you soon." Winter softened into the new year. The town alight with Three Kings parades and bonfires on the beach. Eleanor and Celine walked the shore at dawn, Lily between them, collecting shells that clinked like wind chimes in her bucket. The dress hung now in a place of honor, a relic not of conflict but continuity. Celine's namesake woven into fabric, but the living Celine the true thread binding them. One evening as fireworks bloomed over the harbor for St. Geordie, books and roses exchanged in the square, Eleanor pulled Celine aside, amid the crush of villagers and the scent of grilled calcuts. "Marry me," she said, no ring yet, just the weight of intention in her palm. "Not for show. For us. The revolution Sophia dreamed." Celine's eyes shimmered, mirroring the pyrotechnics. "See," she whispered, pulling her close. 1,000 times. Lily, perched on Tom's shoulders in the crowd, visitors for the holiday, cheered loudest when they announced it later, over fidua and laughter that flowed freer than the cava. Harriet watched, her chignon looser, lines around her eyes deepening not with frowns but smiles. To echoes, she toasted at last, glass raised. And the voices that follow. The wedding was small in May on the cliffside where the lighthouse stood sentinel. Vows exchanged in English and Catalan, Lily scattering petals from the dress's lace. Tom walked Eleanor down the improvised aisle, Harriet dabbing eyes with a handkerchief embroidered. Celine's touch, a peace offering stitched in secret. Years folded like pages. Lily growing into a girl with her mother's fire, sketching boats that Celine turned to oils, writing stories Eleanor bound into chapbooks. The Harringtons visited often. Boston winters traded for Spanish springs. Grudges mulched into garden soil. Sophia's letter became Eleanor's talisman, read on anniversaries, a reminder that love wasn't a zero-sum ledger. In the end, the name that shocked wasn't a curse but a bridge, spanning oceans, losses, the fragile span between what was and what bloomed after. Eleanor learned that family wasn't blood or name alone, but the deliberate acts of holding on, letting go, and choosing again. And in Celine's arms, under the relentless sun of their borrowed home, she found not replacement but completion. A story written in waves, endless and kind.